Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory Live, coming to you early in the morning, 7 a.m. here on the West Coast, 10 a.m. on the East Coast, where Bryan is. We thank you so much for joining us this morning. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button because it helps the channel grow. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO, and you can find us on the audio side as well. So wherever you find your shows or podcasts, you can find us there. Leave us a rate and review, give us a 5-star because that always helps. But Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, they will be on the same card together. They're not fighting each other yet. This is all reports for now. But Devin Haney going to be fighting Jose Ramirez, who just recently lost to Arnold Barboza Jr. And Ryan Garcia, it was slated that Isaac Cruz was going to fight him first, but it's going to be Rolly Romero. How good of a fight is that in terms of entertainment value? Because Rolly's going to bring it. By the way, we had Rolly on our show. If you've never seen that interview,
That's true.
entertaining as hell.
Forgot about
And that was before he fought Isaac Cruz.
Yeah.
So make sure to go check that out. But Bryan, what do you think about this card? Because I was looking at it last night when you sent it to me and I was like, yo, this is actually a pretty solid card.
Yeah, I mean, you have Ryan Garcia, who is fighting Rolly Romero in a fight that is going to be super chaotic, and I thought that fight was going to actually happen at another point. So I'm actually more intrigued that Rolly Romero's in this than Isaac Cruz, just from a character perspective, just from the standpoint of like these two dudes talking shit to each other in the press conference. This is infinitely more interesting fight than, with all due respect, Jose Ramirez and Devin Haney. But I know you're more interested in probably the Jose Ramirez piece of this.
Yes, come on, hey man. You know how I feel about Jose. But before we get into that, Jesus clearly didn't ask me this question on purpose. Bryan, how did Jose Ramirez get Haney after a loss? This is actually a good question that I'm with Jesus. I want you to answer this question.
Isn't Devin Haney kind of coming off a loss? I know he's not technically, but I mean, this is the sort of get back opponent. I mean, look, in terms of opponents that Devin Haney could choose at this point, like you could do a lot worse than Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez, he's still like he lost to Arnold Barboza. I think he's still a dangerous fight for Devin Haney at this stage, especially if Devin Haney this is when we're gonna get some answers. But Devin Haney, he's potentially chinny. Like we have to see how he holds up here. So I didn't expect him to get in the ring with like a power puncher. He's also been teasing that he's going to be a welterweight, that he's going to be at 147, which is funny because he didn't really spend that much time at 140 at all. We'll see. If this is at 147, then you probably feel less confident in Devin Haney, not particularly for this fight, but going forward, just because if Devin Haney is going to be at 147 now, if you're worried about his chin at 140, and granted, Ryan wasn't 140 in that fight, but if you're worried about Devin Haney's chin, him moving up in weight is not going to help him a ton because his power is going to be, well, even more diminished than it already had been. And on top of that, he's going to face stronger and stronger punchers. Jose Ramirez probably doesn't qualify in this regard because he'd be moving up also. But the weight piece of this, like we'll have to see where that lands. And then with Rolly and Ryan, I mean, that's just going to be fun as hell. I think both those guys are going to show up at like 160. It's going to be stupid. Like neither of those, like it's not going to actually be 160. Like I'm talking about rehydration, maybe even bigger than that. But that fight's going to be stupid. And honestly, I'm excited for it.
I think this is actually a pretty interesting fight because, of course, it does depend on what the weight class is for this fight. And as you know, we are gearing up. There has been reports that Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia too will happen. So I'm guessing these are the fights that happen before those two meet in the ring, possibly. Now, where this fight is pretty interesting because I still think Jose Ramirez, and of course I would say this, but he still possesses a threat in this fight. He's a tough fighter. Devin Haney, though, very tactical, but we don't really know how he looks after what happened to him against Ryan Garcia. We don't know how chinny he is. We don't know what type of fighter he's going to be. Also, because he never lost like that before. And I know it's not a loss on the record, but mentally, how is Devin Haney going to be in the ring again after being dropped like that? And he did show mental toughness throughout that whole entire fight. Like, let's remember that Ryan Garcia didn't get the stoppage in that fight. which is crazy because there were so many drops, but he was mentally tough throughout that fight. And you could see clearly that he had a broken jaw after. So what Devin Haney we see in this fight is very, very interesting. But at the same time, on the Jose Ramirez front, which I don't know if people are too interested in it, I am, but this could kind of be his last like go around, because
Yeah.
what happens with Jose Ramirez after?
Yeah.
If he is to lose this fight, and I think a lot of people would be picking Devin Haney to win this fight, I think Jose will make it very interesting because he's going to come forward. And, Jose Ramirez likes to take punches and throw them at the same time. In terms of volume, he's going to have that work rate against Devin Haney, possibly because Devin Haney has been getting hit a lot more since, I would say, Lomachenko. Before, Devin Haney was a little bit hard to hit, but he's been easier to hit lately. But I think it's because he's taken more chances than before and been a little bit more entertaining on that front. But this could be one of Jose Ramirez's last fights, depending on how it goes. And we saw a little bit of a delay in his life where we didn't see him in the ring for a while. And I was like, yo, where is he? So very interesting when it comes to his career on that front. And as for the Ryan Garcia side against Rolly Romero, entertainment, pure entertainment. And I think it's cool of Ryan Garcia to also get into the ring with Rolly, because could this be Rolly's last hurrah too in the ring? Because right now, Rolly's in a different situation too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's gonna make a lot of bread off this fight, which is great for Rolly, but he's also taken a lot of L's. And it's not the best for him. So lots of questions going into both of these fights, but nonetheless, Brian, very entertaining on both sides.
Rolly Romero is going to be 30 years old this year. It's a little bit of an upset. I thought he was younger. Maybe it's the way he acts, but he's 16-2, and it feels like he has more losses than that because remember the Ishmael Barroso fight where he fucking just the worst stoppage ever. Like, all due respect, but that's the worst. That's one of the worst stoppages I've ever seen. That he got the stoppage in that fight. He was down on all three cards at the time of the stoppage. The stoppage was at a time where he had like a little glimmer, but he wasn't very much like dominating in a way that you needed to stop Barroso, who dropped him earlier in that fight. So there's right there, you're looking at what should have been three straight losses for Rolly, because before that was Tank, and after that was Isaac Cruz. And we interviewed him before the Isaac Cruz fight, and he's like, "You seen that dude's head? Like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to miss it." Like shit like that. And he actually did see some success when he boxed and was able to stay away from Isaac Cruz's power hand, which was kind of what we said. Like Isaac Cruz, like if you box, like you can kind of neutralize him. Rolly Romero was doing some of that until Isaac Cruz eventually got to him. Was up on one scorecard at the time of the stoppage, by the way. But it's just so chaotic. Like I don't think anyone, not anyone, but I don't think people are gonna pick him to beat Ryan Garcia. If you look at Ryan Garcia and just like if he's focused, like he should be able to get this done. And so should Devin Haney. Like these are interesting matchups, but at the same time, these are favorable to the A sides in a way where it's like we're clearly setting up from a business standpoint Haney, Garcia too with these matchups. And yes, it's possible that Jose Ramirez or Rolly Romero get the win. If I were to ask you who has a better chance of getting the upset between the two of them, I think you're going to say Jose Ramirez. And I'm not sure I'm going to disagree, to be honest.
Well, yeah, like, okay, so obviously you probably know by now if you're watching this show, I love Jose Ramirez. He's like one of my favorite fighters. So for me, I just want to see him have an entertaining fight against Devin Haney. That's the only thing I could hope for, because I at the same time wouldn't want him to get dominated by Devin Haney. But if I'm Devin Haney, that's the performance I want coming back. Because let's remember, Jose Ramirez was almost undisputed at 140 pounds. Josh Taylor came in. There was a long layoff for Jose Ramirez, and he didn't look like himself. And Josh Taylor ended up beating Jose Ramirez. But listen, there was a time where Jose Ramirez was that dude at 140 pounds. Wasn't that long ago, like 2 years ago. So, I mean, I still think this could be. I'm excited for the fight. Like when I saw all the fights that were being listed that were going to happen, in the next couple of months, I was like, this is the fight I'm looking forward to. Because at the same time, I think Jose Ramirez still has a lot to prove. And, it's going to be interesting. But at the same time, Ryan Garcia can be reckless sometimes. Rolly's got power, yo. He has power. And as you know, in boxing, anything can happen. And I think I still believe this, but I think Rolly against Tank was still one of the most impressive fights against Tank. I thought Rolly fought pretty well until he got knocked out. That's my opinion. I had him up, actually.
One judge did as well. One judge had him up.
So it's like, Rolly's, he hasn't looked that great in his previous fights, but he still has the power.